I'm going to teach you today one specific shift that you can use and apply in your next meeting. Not a script, not a technique, a shift in how you think about communicating in high stakes rooms. If you are a tech professional with 5 to 10 years of experience and you are excellent at what you do, but still overlooked in the rooms that matter, this channel is built for you. So this shift is going to revolve around the RISEpoint Shift Framework. And the RISEpoint Shift Framework goes like this. There's 3 stages. First, you have to spot it, then you have to spark it, and then you have to finally show it. And we are going to go through each of these today. First thing you have to do is spot it. This is the first step of the RISEpoint Shift Framework. Most professionals go silent in the same type of moments. Architecture reviews, cross-functional meetings, presentations to senior leadership. In these moments, you may not realize it, but there is a pattern that you have that you first need to recognize. And this pattern usually helps or hurts you depending on what that pattern is. When it comes to communicating, if you are going silent, what is the trigger to that moment of you going silent? There's a specific feeling that you need to understand in these moments. It's not about understanding that you need to speak up more. We already talked about this in previous videos. Just simply speaking up more doesn't necessarily mean more effective, or being louder doesn't necessarily mean being more effective. You have to have a specific moment that you can point to and a specific feeling that you have had that you can then pinpoint and attack, so you can try to override that with what you've learned in your skill development. So spotting your pattern is the first step in actually breaking it. You want to build a pattern that actually is conducive and helpful to helping you progress and advance in your career, especially when it comes to your communication. I'm a firm believer that if you change your communication, you will change your life. Your communication is the base of everything that you want, because you have to verbally state what it is to communicate value that you bring that the other person would want. And the way the world works in general is it's a value for value world. So if I give you value, you have to give me value back. But if I'm not giving you value, you don't have to give me value back, nor would you want to. So understanding that this value starts with your communication, you can then move forward in understanding that the patterns that I have when it comes to my communication, if I can identify the parts that are holding me back, then I can move forward with how to break those patterns that are holding me back and replace them with new conducive habits to what I actually want. So when it comes to spot it, here's how you can use this first phase. This is what I want you to do. I want you to take some time right now, 30 seconds to a minute, and I want you to think about the last time you went silent when you had something to say. And when you're thinking about it, think about what was happening in that room. Who was there? What was the vibes like? What was the feeling like? And when you chose not to speak up, what were you afraid of? What was the trigger? What was the reason? What was the history? What had happened to you before that didn't allow you to speak up in this moment? And when you think about what happened to you before, what was the context? How could you have done it differently? And in this new opportunity going forward, when you're in the situation again, because remember, these are patterns, how would you move differently? Just take some time to think about this and write it down and sit with it. This is your first step. If you can spot the pattern, you can break it. The second step is to spark it. This is the second phase in the RISEpoint Shift Framework. Once you've identified your pattern, you can then start working on the skills and tools you need to break it. And that skill, the main one that you're going to need to work on, is your voice. Your voice is the internal resource that you have to identify and communicate value. Your voice is already there. It can produce the idea, and the idea is the thing that conveys the value. But when you use your voice, this is what I want you to do. Before you speak, I want you to understand what you are hearing first before you speak. Understand the pattern that you're trying to break. Now, in that pattern that you're trying to break, how can your voice be used as a tool and an asset to you to help break this pattern? Remember, this is an internal resource. Your voice is already there. You already have the voice. How you use it is going to determine how you can move forward, how other people see your value, and how you can get to the things that you actually want, the promotions, the pay increases, all of that. Here's the thing. When you have a voice that's already there, you have to bring it out of you. And sometimes it just takes putting yourself in the spotlight to do it. And I know that's uncomfortable, but growth starts from discomfort. I remember one of the first times I've had to be uncomfortable in my life, and it was actually the 4th grade. And I remember being a shy kid and not wanting to raise my hand in class and not wanting to be embarrassed in front of my friends. To my surprise, my mother had entered me into the school talent show. Now, I didn't necessarily want to do it, but my mother, she told me to do it. It really wasn't a choice that I had. So she entered me into the school talent show doing Michael Jackson. Now, I've done Michael Jackson before. I've done it at, family functions. I've done it, in my room in front of my parents and my brother. And those are safe and comfortable environments. Much like some of you can speak up and be loud when you're around your friends and your peers, and there's no bearing or pressure or outcomes that you're thinking about. That's how it was for me when it came to doing Michael Jackson and dancing. But when she put the spotlight on me to do the talent show, I didn't know how I was going to show up. But let me tell you what happened. I practiced. I rehearsed. I had to spark skill development within myself to be ready for the moment. And when the moment came and I walked on stage, they said, "Come to the stage, performing Michael Jackson, Jeremy Clark." The crowd, they started clapping, introducing me on stage. But then the cheers stopped, the lights beamed, and then the music dropped. She was more like beauty queen from a movie scene. I said no mind, but do you mean I am the one? I'm gonna dance on the floor and around. I was dancing to Billie Jean. If you're not familiar with that song, go look it up. Amazing. And something interesting happened. Everything that I did to prepare for that moment, when the lights turned on and the claps went silent, I got out of my head and I just started doing and showing up and sparking what I knew I already had inside. I had already did this before. I had already danced in front of my family. I already had the skills. It just took me getting in the spotlight to bring it out. And when I was done, the crowd reacted. They gave me a standing ovation, round of applause. And that was one of my first times I actually felt seen. And a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what does that have to do with me being in a meeting and having to speak up? What I'm telling you is, if you take the time to develop your internal resource, your major one that you have, which is your voice, when it's time to get into the moment, you can break the old patterns of staying silent and actually speak up. And then once you actually speak up, you might just get a proverbial standing ovation. And in your case, that just looks like a stamp of approval and acceptance of what you said that moves a project forward or brings new insight that they didn't think about before, that actually changes the dynamic of what you and your teams are working on. Your voice can literally change your world. And not only can it change your world, it can change the world of people around you. And if you can use your voice to change your world and others' worlds, you can have the type of life that you desire. Whether that's more promotions, more money, whatever it is, the moment you can master your voice and hone in on that skill development in the spark it phase is the moment that you can then become undeniable. And once you develop that skill, you can then move to the third phase, which is the show it phase. This is the part that I just talked about as far as becoming undeniable. This is part of the skill that you developed and took time to understand and work on. You can actually put that into practice. Now, in the show it phase, I use a framework called TALK. And this framework actually helps you to make yourself known, but stay there. Stay there when it normally feels uncomfortable. TALK stands for take space, acknowledge by listening, land your point, keep the frame. Okay? So when you take space, that's when you walk in the room. That's when you have your shoulders back, your head high. Okay? You're taking space, you're owning it. When you acknowledge by listening, you're using your natural skill of staying silent to your advantage by being quiet and listening to what people have to say around you or in a direct conversation that you may be having. And then when you acknowledge by listening, you're showing active engagement by shaking your head and making gestures that show that you're following along. And then when it's time for you to speak, you land your point. This is the most important thing. When you land your point, you're taking everything that you've spotted in the first phase, as far as where you normally have silenced yourself, and the skills you develop in the spark it phase, where you've developed how to say something. And then you finally, in the third phase, land your point based on everything that you went through. And the most important is keeping the frame, which is staying there, being quiet, keeping your head up. Don't disengage, but land your point and keep the frame. Keeps your authority. When you keep your authority, other people notice. Showing it is the moment your natural voice enters the room. I just mentioned how when you use your voice effectively, you become undeniable. And this is exactly what that is. When you use your voice effectively, when you've previously been silenced or felt like you couldn't speak up, this is the moment you go from invisible to undeniable. And this is going to be your most important identity. It's not going to be introversion. It's not going to be extroversion. It's going to be undeniable, because when you're undeniable, there is something to work towards. And anything in between that is not going to stop you. No matter the outcome, no matter the setback, if you have a deeper purpose, your voice will overcome the obstacle if you work on it. And if you want the complete picture, the full framework, all 3 steps working together applied to your specific situation, I'm running a free live training on May 7th that walks you through the whole thing. The link to save your spot is in the description. Be sure to subscribe for more details and more information coming your way. I'll see you in the next video.